Brothers and sisters, in today's program, we will be presenting, part of it as a statement that is being issued, indeed being analysis from my very self on the following topic. African Union Peace and Security Council. The Gambia's involvement is a threat to Southern Sudan, stemming from Yahya Jammeh's biases as a close friend of Omar al-Bashir. The government of Sudan knows better. Analysis by Isa Bokarr. There is an African saying in Wolof that sums it all. It says, Kulahud leka dullah jai, meaning a person who does not have enough porridge at home cannot sell porridge to buyers. You know, one thing is new in Africa today, and that thing is reserved for dictators within the club of the African Union. Although useless, dictators do cling onto this straw even when they very well know that they are sinking by the day. What is this thing? It is where and when despots enter into the ring of conflict resolution, thus attempt cleansing their own bloody claws. Africans themselves know that those who cause these conflicts are the same despots who want to be seen as negotiators. How can a usual suspect serve as the best detective? Reality has no answer on the latter. However, could it be thinkable where paradox is used to replace the contents of a Pandora box of mischief? Yes. Sometimes, Africa's case generates more sorrow than hope, but alongside, the audacity of hope comes back to salvage its people. In the case of Yahya Jammeh and Omar al-Bashir, we all know that they are close friends. Now, wasn't it Yahya Jammeh who came out to insult the West in defense of Omar al-Bashir and then invited him to Banjul to show his solidarity? Omar al-Bashir, a person who is wanted for committing crimes against humanity? Where was Yahya Jammeh when al-Bashir was using state-sponsored terror to kill Southern Sudanese? Yahya Jammeh was defending Bashir at the United Nations. He was helping him buy arms as the former is under embargo. Yahya thinks the world doesn't know this? Yes, Yahya. Al-Bashir's name is indeed on an international arrest warrant. Where were these crimes being committed? Of course, in Southern Sudan. Who were the state-sponsored agents of terror? Of course, the Janjaweed. Who created the Janjaweed? Of course, Northern Sudan, under the leadership of al-Bashir. Now, to those who do not know how nations occupy positions like the chairmanship of African Union Peace and Security Council, be told that it is nothing more than musical chairs. Simply put, such organizations are products of diplomatic niceties that were created by portfolio mongers who have been partitioning Africa for the second time to help maintain a club of despots of the African Union. These organizations, to be honest, mean nothing. Of course, the very reason why despots like Yahya Jammeh are left to man them. As the saying goes, he or she who feels it knows it. Well. In our case, to be more precise, we in ECOWAS, being the economic community of West African states, we will say this: he who or she who lives it knows it. Ask yourself why Yahya Jammeh was rejected when it was his turn to head the ECOWAS chairmanship. If you do, you will get part of the answer. Then ask yourself, why was he insulting ECOWAS during the last so-called presidential elections in the Gambia? We remember his tirades with Umaru Fofana of the BBC World Service soon after the august body refused to come and be part of the process because those elections were neither free nor fair. After all, the other part of the answer is Yahya Jammeh himself. Will any sane person or party ever expect impartiality from an armed bandit like Yahya Jammeh, a friend of al-Bashir for that matter, worst of all negotiating between who and who, Northern Sudan and Southern Sudan? Oh, please. The world is revolving around insanity here, to be honest. After all, his biases were heard during the last African Union Summit. People, how can any serious person listen to his ways of castigating the West and then expect him to be impartial in Southern Sudan, a country that knows very well that if it was not for the exposure from actors and other parties who went and witnessed the atrocities, by now they would have still been fighting for their independence. Statements like, quote, Africa should not wait for the West to help settle their conflicts, end quote, are already biased. Who utters such nonsense? Of course, the nonsensical and sulky despot called Yahya Jammeh in the Gambia. Now, after uttering such nonsense and disgracing the Gambia and Africa at large, one thing I will warn against today is that although his stay at the African Union Peace and Security Council would be brief, Yahya Jammeh will himself face the meaning of the organ, as his own country will be in flames thanks to him being an armed bandit. Mark my words, it is on the way. His own Minister of Foreign Affairs will be victimized sooner than later because failure is a foregone conclusion in this case. Southern Sudan, of course, knows much better than Dr. Senghor thinks. I personally know some of their shakers and movers in Texas and will make sure that their government stays away from Yahya Jammeh. This is a promise, and other shakers and movers, policy makers, and people who are powerful in Washington will also be notified. They already know anyway. He is no negotiator. He is in it for al-Bashir and no one else. In fact, let Southern Sudanese ask themselves this question: why did his neighbor Senegal distrust him in the Casamance conflict? Let them ask foreign diplomats who are stationed in Dakar and actively involved in the negotiations in the southern part of Senegal. They will then tell them a lot about the obstacles Yahya Jammeh has been placing before them in that area. Dr. Bokarr Senghor, we assure you that we will make sure Southern Sudan knows more about you and your hire in days to come. Of course, Yahya Jammeh knows what some of us are capable of. He is an armed bandit who has no place in anything related to enhancing the lives of Africans. Yahya's own backyard is smoking, and he will soon feel the flames. America, France, United Kingdom, China, Russia, and other powerful countries within the G8 and the G20 are being reminded. Of course, some of them already know it and are acting accordingly, that running after resources in Africa without working side by side with parties who want to nurture democracy is not to their advantage, neither is it to the interest of Africa. It is a win-win situation here. Africa can never move forward without creating an atmosphere where good governance or democracy is guaranteed. Investors must be reminded that working with democratic governments is much better and safer for them. Therefore, the private sector in these countries must be checking the actions of their respective governments in Africa. If we modern-day Africans continue seeing such powers as parties who are only interested in running after our resources instead of helping eject despots like Yahya Jammeh and al-Bashir, we would then resist such exploitation and remove such despots by force. We cannot continue entertaining the passive nature of countries that very well know that Africa is retarded by the despots they are working with. As long as Yahya Jammeh and others like al-Bashir are in Africa, calling themselves heads of state, more conflicts are on the way. Time will tell. Thank you, brothers and sisters.